All those not having privileges to the floor will please vacate the chamber. Members and guests will please rise as we're led in prayer today by the gentleman from the 32nd, Delegate Fast.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Shall we pray? Father in heaven, we are grateful for who you are, Lord. You are the Almighty King of Kings and Lord of Lords. We acknowledge that this day in this chamber, God, you're greater than us, more powerful than any entity or government on this earth. And to you, God, we pray this day. We pray, God, for wisdom. We pray for insight. Lord, help us to recognize bad bills, good bills. God, help us to recognize bad parts and good parts. Lord, help us to produce quality legislation that would be of benefit to this state. We thank you, God, for who you are. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. We're pleased to have with us the Wayne Elementary Honor Chorus, who will sing Star Spangled Banner. They are the guests of the gentleman from the 19th, Delegate Thompson. I would ask all of our members and guests to please remain standing. Will now be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by the gentleman from the 19th, Delegate Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would members and guests please join me in honoring our flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Reading the Journal.
Journal of the House of Delegates, Charleston, Monday, February 5th, 2018.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from the 16th, Delegate Romine.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that further reading of the Journal be dispensed with and be approved as having been read.
The gentleman from the 16th asks unanimous that further reading of the Journal be dispensed with and be approved as having been read. Is there objection? Chair hears none. The Journal is approved as having been read. House will be in order. Gentleman from the 58th.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there were a number of questions raised on House Bill 4329, and apparently we need to shift gears. And I ask unanimous consent to proceed to further consideration of House Bill 4329.
Gentleman 58th asks unanimous consent to proceed to further consideration of House Bill 4329. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Gentleman from the 58th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker.
Wait. The bill is on third reading. The clerk will report the bill.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4329. requiring pawnbrokers to provide certain information to law enforcement agencies.
Gentleman from 58th.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move to recommit the bill to the Committee on Judiciary.
The gentleman from 58th moves that the bill be recommitted to the Committee on the Judiciary. All in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The bill is recommitted to the Committee on the Judiciary. Gentleman from the 58th.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, today we have a citation presentation recognizing West Virginia State University. To accept the citation, we have the University President Jenkins, students, faculty, administrators. Escorting our guests into the chamber are delegates Nelson, Capito, Byrd, Lane, Walters, White, Robinson, Rowe, Pushkin, and Speaker Armstead.
Clerk, please read the citation.
Whereas West Virginia State University offers award-winning academics, exceptional athletics, and groundbreaking research. West Virginia State University was founded as the West Virginia Colored Institute by the West Virginia Legislature 127 years ago on March 17, 1891. In 1927, under the leadership of President John W. Davis, through the expansion of academic programs and the construction of new buildings, the institution was accredited by the North Central Association and holds the longest continuous accreditation of any public college or university in West Virginia. In 1929, the institution became known as West Virginia State College, and over the next decades, West Virginia State College was recognized as one of the leading public institutions of higher education for African Americans. In 1954, the United States Supreme Court gave its historic decision outlawing school segregation, and West Virginia State College rapidly transitioned to an integrated institution. And whereas in 2004, the West Virginia Legislature approved the transition to university status, West Virginia State University now offers 77 academic program options, leading to 23 baccalaureate and 5 master's degrees. West Virginia State University is actively working with other state institutions of higher education to create additional pathways for degree-seeking students. As one of only 2 land-grant institutions in the state, West Virginia State University's Extension Service serves 38 counties. These services aid approximately 20,000 people throughout the year. And whereas, as a regional research institution, West Virginia State University contributes significantly to state economic development efforts in the areas of biotechnology, plant, microbial, and animal research. With every dollar the state invests in West Virginia State University, the university generates nearly $16 spent in the West Virginia economy, resulting in an estimated economic output of $254 million per year. Since its founding 127 years ago, West Virginia State University has always proven to be a community of students, faculty, and staff devoted to helping people find their passion and gain the education needed to launch successful careers. Therefore, the House of Delegates of the West Virginia Legislature hereby recognizes West Virginia State University and hereby directs this citation be presented.
Members will please be at ease a moment while I greet our guests and present the citation. Members will please escort our honored guests from the chamber. John from the 58th.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, today we have a citation presentation recognizing the Class A state champion cheerleading squad from Tug Valley High School. To accept the citation, we have the championship team and coaches. Escorting our guests in the chamber are delegates Markham and Dean.
Clerk, please read the citation.
Whereas Tug Valley High School is located in the heart of Mingo County and known for their academics and athletics. Tug Valley High School is the centerpiece of a lot of local pride and has a huge fan base that provides much to the local area. Tug Valley High School cheerleaders worked hard all season training and came together at the state cheerleading championship. And whereas the Tug Valley High School cheerleaders are no strangers to the state competition, as they won their first state title in 2005 and have made it to the state cheerleading competition 13 out of the last 14 years. The Tug Valley High School cheerleaders won 5 state titles, notably in 2005, 2009, 2011, 2012, and 2017. The cheerleaders were named state runners-up in 2006, 2007, and 2010. The squad is comprised of 14 very hard-working ladies who also brought home the Grand Champion Award at the George Washington Invitational Competition. The Tug Valley cheerleaders are well deserving of this honor. Therefore, the House of Delegates of the West Virginia Legislature hereby honors the Tug Valley High School 2017 Class A cheerleading state champions and directs this citation be presented in their honor.
Members will please be at ease a moment while I greet our guests and present the citation. This is a gentleman from the 44th, Delegate Lynch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today on a sad note. I want to inform you and the body that we lost another coal miner last night, early this morning. Leonard Griffith from Pickens, West Virginia, lost his life in a rib roll at Sentinel Mine at Arch Coal in Philippi, West Virginia, about 5:30 this morning. Mr. Speaker, I would ask that you please ask the body for a moment of silence in his honor and his family's honor.
If all members of GAS will please rise for a moment of silence. Members and guests may be seated. Introduction of guests. The gentleman from 6, Doggett Romine.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Pleased to have with me today in Youth and Government some outstanding 8th graders from Tyler Consolidated. Garrett Ammons, Hagan Baker, Arden Hoover, Adrian Weekly, and their chaperone, Mr. Ed Underwood. Ask at the house, make them welcome.
Late from 16th, Doggett Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of the delegates from District 16, 17, and 18, we have some students from Barbersville Middle School here for Youth in Government. They are accompanied by Tom Turman, who is their sponsor. We have Isabella Backus, Jacob Lee, Kenzie Nottingham, Savannah Smith, and Olivia Turman. If you all would stand up and you all please make them welcome.
John from the 28th, Doggett Pack.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have with me my intern for the week. His name is Jacob Coots. He's from Glenville State College. He's majoring in political science, and he has aspirations toward law school. If the House would please make him welcome.
John from 13th, Doggett Higginbotham.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have my intern for the week as well. Kevin Metz is from Martinsburg, West Virginia in Berkeley County. He is currently a political science student, a junior at Shepherd. So if the House would please make him feel very welcome.
John from the 14th, Doggett Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of the Mason County delegation, we have a group from Point Pleasant Junior and Senior High School with the youth leadership. We have, and if they'll stand when I call their names, Ryan Tatterson, Connor McCarthy, Gabe Corbin, David Kapp, Kaylee Roush, Madeline Wilcoxon, Kayla Butler, and they're accompanied by their teacher, Mary Farley. Would the House please welcome them?
The delegate from the 17th, Delegate Robot.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We have visiting with us today on behalf of the Cabell County delegation. I'd like you to welcome some of our pages. If they'd stand when their names are called, Ethan Lovejoy, who is the son of Delegate Lovejoy, Max Specht, J.D. Francesco, and Ryan Ramey, and if the House would make them welcome.
The delegate from the 19th, Delegate Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of myself and Delegate Hicks, we have, you've already heard him sing, but please let's welcome the Wayne Elementary Honor Chorus along with their chaperones and their teacher, Sherry Tadlock. In the South Gallery, we have about 70 students from, civic students from Wayne High School, along with their chaperones, Lynetta Welker, Aaron Staley, and Tish Smith. We also have the two bus drivers that brought them up, Brian Barker and David Thompson. And we're also welcomed by one of our Wayne County magistrates, Billy Dale Runyon, and his wife, Carrie. So please give all these Wayne County people a round of applause.
The delegate from the 23rd, Delegate Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We have some pages and their chaperones from Scott High School. If they would stand and be recognized, I want to call your name. Our pages are Ty McClung, Tatiana Reynolds, and Kaylee Farrell, and they are brought here today by Paul and Marilyn Maynard. Johnny Farrell and Stephanie Farrell, I think, are in the galleries. If the House would please make them feel welcome.
The delegate from the 19th, Delegate Hicks.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of Robbie Thompson and myself, I would like to introduce several pages from Wayne County. These pages represent Buffalo Middle School and Wayne Middle School and Wayne High School. And pages, as I identify you, please stand. They are Lauren Peters, Emma Page Butts, Grace Thompson, Tana Vay Dameron, Hannah Thompson, Abigail Browning, Katie Queen, Grace Thompson, Molly Keeling, Catherine and Katie Rowe. And they are escorted today by Megan Hazlett, Debbie Rowe, Miranda Watson, Terry Queen, Brian Thompson, Miranda Watson. House, please make them welcome.
The delegate from the 29th, Delegate Moy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Or is that Mr. Boogeyman?
Whatever.
On behalf of all of the delegates that represent Raleigh County, I am honored to tell you that we have pages here from Hollywood Elementary. And as I call your names, would you please stand? We have Myra Matkins, Lacey Garris, and Maggie Atkins. They are accompanied today by Kim Matkins. Would they all please stand, and will the House please make our guests welcome?
The delegate from the 42nd, Delegate Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of myself and you, we have some students here today and from Youth in Government, from Eastern Greenbrier Middle School in Roncevert, 8th graders. They're in our West Gallery. Please stand. I can't see you, but please stand when I call your name. Tristan Deeds, Kaylee Alder, and Evan Vaughn. Okay, their chaperones are Tasha Alder and our new first-year West Virginia history teacher at EGMS, Ty Branovich. Please make them welcome. And also here today representing AARP is Danny Gray from Roncevert. Please make him welcome. Thank you.
John from the 10th, Delegate Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today is Chamber of Commerce Day for the Mid-Ohio Valley Chamber, and they are here today in the Capitol. And please join the delegation from Wood County in making those folks feel welcome. If there's any of you here in the chamber, please stand. Ladies and gentlemen, please make our chamber feel welcome. Thank you.
John from the 17th, Delegate Lovejoy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wanted to introduce a special chaperone for our pages from Huntington East Middle School. In the West Gallery, my wife, Sarah Lovejoy. Please make her feel welcome.
John from 34th, Delegate Boggs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm honored this morning to introduce to you and to the members of the House our honorary Secretaries of State for the day. The Honorary Secretary of State program recognizes high school students from across the state who have been leaders in voter registration among their classmates. Robert Boyce and Sarah Lane are students at Braxton County High School. They're in the North Gallery. These leaders, along with 49 other students from across the state, held more than 100 voter registration drives and registered more than 1,300 high school, or 13,000 high school seniors to vote in 2017. Robert and Sarah are here today and are seated in the North Gallery. They're accompanied by Secretary of State Mac Warner and Inspire West Virginia Program Coordinator Olivia McCuskey. If they would stand, please, and the members would please make Robert and Sarah welcome.
John for the 30th, Doug Bates.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Joining us in the rear gallery are 3 students from St. Francis de Sales Catholic Church in Raleigh County. On behalf of all the delegates from Raleigh County, if they would stand, please. These young lady, young man are here participating in the Youth and Government program, and they're classmates of my daughter, and they're teachers with them today, Ms. Little. So if the House would make Maddie Monroe and Christian Safori welcome, please.
John for the 26th, Doug Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm honored to introduce members of the West Virginia State University Political Science Department. They're in the galleries: Kaylin Barker, Cal Coangelo, and Rachel Harper. There they are in the gallery behind us. If you'd make them feel welcome, please.
Further introductions. Lady from 16th, Doug Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to announce that, sponsored by the West Virginia Academy of Family Physicians and celebrating the 29th anniversary of the Doc of the Day program, today we have Dr. Louis Olive from Williamson, West Virginia. Will you all please make him welcome?
John for the 48th, Doug Iaquinta.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to announce tomorrow, February the 7th, will be Veterans Visibility Day in the House Chamber. Thank you.
Further introductions. Reports of standing committees.
Your Committee on Roads and Transportation has had under consideration committee substitute for Senate Concurrent Resolution 4, West Virginia Army National Guard Sergeant Glenn F. Lau, P.E., Memorial Bridge. Reports the same back with the recommendation that it be adopted.
The report will be received and the resolution will be referred to the Committee on Rules.
Your Committee on Roads and Transportation has had under consideration House Bill 2008 relating to the Dealer Recovery Program and House Bill 2983 granting priority to roadway construction, reconstruction, and maintenance for roadways prone to recurring floods that hinder ingress and egress. Reports the same back with amendments with recommendation that each do pass as amended, that they be referred to the Committee on Finance.
The report be received and the bills be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Your Committee on Judiciary has had under consideration House Bill 4276 allowing magistrates to grant work release privileges. Reports back committee substitute, therefore, with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass.
The report be received.
Your Committee on Judiciary has had under consideration House Bill 4410, removing the requirement that the state auditor receive copies of the limited video lottery bids. Reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass.
Report be received.
Your Committee on Judiciary has had under consideration House Bill 4016 relating to combating waste, fraud, and misuse of public funds through investigations, accountability, and transparency. Reports the same back with amendment with the recommendation that it do pass as amended and that it be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Report be received. The bill be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Your Committee on Judiciary has had under consideration House Bill 4186 relating generally to guaranteed asset protection waivers. Reports back to committee substitute, therefore, with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass.
Report be received.
Your Committee on Government Organization has had under consideration House Bill 4140 transferring of certain powers and programs of the West Virginia Affordable Housing Trust Fund to the West Virginia Housing Development Fund. Reports the same back with amendment with the recommendation that it do pass as amended and that it be referred to the Committee on Finance.
The report be received and the bill be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Your Committee on Government Organization has had under consideration House Bill 4025 permitting reciprocity for licensure as a pharmacy technician. Reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass.
Report be received.
Your Committee on Government Organization has had under consideration House Bill 4236 requiring agencies to provide an annual inventory of real property holdings to the Real Estate Division. Reports back to committee substitute, therefore. Reports back to committee substitute, therefore, with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass.
Report be received.
Your Committee on Government and Organization has had under consideration House Bill 4023 relating to the regulation of dialysis technicians. Reports back to committee substitute, therefore, with the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass.
Report be received.
Your Committee on Government and Organization has had under consideration House Bill 4348 relating to the powers and duties of the Public Land Corporation. Reports the same back with amendment with the recommendation that it do pass as amended and that it be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Report be received. The bill be referred to the Committee on Finance. Reports of select committees. Messages from the Executive. Messages from the Senate.
The Clerk of the Senate announces the passage by the Senate of Committee Substitute for House Bill 4020, making technical corrections in the code when referencing Chapter 49.
Message to be received. The gentleman from the 58th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we have a Senate message for House Bill 4020, and you can find it on your on the chamber automation system under bulletins, I believe. Yes. Mr. Speaker, House Bill 4020, the purpose of the bill is to correct outdated cross-references to Chapter 49 throughout the code. The Senate amendment primarily provide additional technical corrections, but they also updated the definition of abused child to include a child whose health and welfare is being harmed or threatened by domestic violence or human trafficking. Mr. Speaker, I move we concur in the Senate amendment.
John 58th moves that the House concur in the Senate amendment. Is there discussion? If not, question for the House is the motion by the gentleman for the 58th that the House concur in the Senate amendment. All in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Declare the House concurs in the Senate amendment. Question now before the House is the passage of the bill as amended by the Senate. Those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, 97 ayes, 0 nays, 2 members absent, not voting. The majority of members elected having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk, please report the title.
Committee Substitute for House Bill 4020.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, its title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. Clerk, please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. For what purpose, gentleman from the 10th, Delegate Kelly, seek recognition.
Mr. Speaker, I was out of my seat when the vote was taken, and I just want to record that I would be an affirmative vote on that bill.
The gentleman's vote, had he been at his seat, will be reflected in the journal. Further messages from the Senate.
The Senate has passed Senate Bill 322 relating to employees of the Department of Agriculture.
Message should be received. The bill be referred to the Committee on Agriculture and Natural Resources and then to Government Organization.
The Senate has passed Senate Bill 343 limiting expenses and preparing list for notice to redeem.
Message should be received. The bill be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
The Senate has passed Senate Bill 364 allowing parent or legal guardian of homeschooled child provide signed statement for obtaining permit or license to operate motor vehicle.
Message should be received. The bill be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
The Senate has passed Senate Bill 400 prohibiting state licensing boards from hiring lobbyists.
Message should be received. The bill be referred to the Committee on Government Organization and then to Judiciary. Resolutions.
House Concurrent Resolution 47, U.S. Army Specialist 4 William L. Amos Memorial Bridge.
Gentleman from the 58th.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that further reading of resolutions introduced be dispensed with, and each resolution be considered formally introduced and referred to the appropriate committee as listed on the Chamber Automation System.
Gentleman 58th asks unanimous consent that further reading of resolutions introduced be dispensed with. Each resolution be considered formally introduced and referred to the appropriate committees as indicated on the Chamber Automation System. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Each resolution will be considered formally introduced and so referred. Petitions. Motions. Bills introduced.
House Bill 4436, clarifying when a minor between the ages of 16 and 18 may be employed by or elected as a member of a volunteer fire department.
John 58th.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that further reading of bills introduced be dispensed with, and each bill be considered formally introduced and referred to the appropriate committee as listed on the Chamber Automation System.
John 58th asks unanimous consent that further reading of bills introduced be dispensed with. that each bill be considered formally introduced and referred to the appropriate committees as indicated on the chamber automation system. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Each bill be considered formally introduced and so referred. Unfinished business. Bills on third reading.
Committee Subsuper House Bill 2693 relating to state ownership of wildlife.
Request before the House is the passage of the bill. The gentleman from the 33rd, Doggett Hanshaw, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. In our code, we currently find a definition of wildlife. However, in that very same article of code, a few sections later, the drafters of the code neglected to use the defined term wildlife and instead listed all of those same species out. This is a technical correction bill which strikes out that list of species and inserts the word wildlife, which is defined earlier in the same article. I urge passage of this technical correction bill.
Are there other members desiring to speak to the passage of the bill? If not, the question for the House is the passage of the bill. Those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. Clerk, prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, 97 ayes, 1 nay, 1 member absent not voting. A majority of members present having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk, please report the title.
Committee Subsuper House Bill 2693.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, its title is read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. Clerk, please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Request concurrence therein. Gentleman from the 50th, Delegate Caputo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to ask unanimous consent to return to second order of business for the purpose of an introduction.
Without objection, gentleman may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the back gallery, we're joined by someone very special. I have a couple introductions, but I want to do our special guest first. We have a new president of Fairmont State University. She took over the duties January 1st. She comes to us from neighboring state of Virginia, and she's doing a bang-up job. She hit the ground running. Would the House please welcome Dr. Myrta Martin to West Virginia. Welcome. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And on behalf of Delegate Ward, Longstreth, and myself, we have a couple other special guests up there. We have the chairman of the Board of Governors, Ms. Dixie Yan, and the Government Relations Officer, Ms. Jessica Sell. Would you two please stand and the House make you welcome?
Further introductions. Further bills on third reading.
Committee Subsuper House Bill 4199 permitting a nursing home to use trained individuals to administer medication.
The gentleman from the 58th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to move the bill to the foot of bills on the calendar.
The gentleman from the 58th asks unanimous consent that the bill be moved to the foot of bills on the calendar. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Bill be placed to the foot of bills on calendar. Further bills on third reading.
Committee Substitute House Bill 4230 relating to credit for reinsurance.
Request before the House is the passage of the bill. Gentleman from the 27th, Delegate Schott, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill was requested by the Insurance Commissioner and is necessary for us to retain our certification with respect to credit for reinsurance. Basically, if we don't pass this bill, then deference will not be given to us in regulation of insurance companies doing business in the reinsurance market here in West Virginia, but rather we will have effectively ceded that jurisdiction to other states. So this is necessary if we want to continue to control the market, or the monitoring of reinsurance in West Virginia, and I urge adoption or passage of the bill.
Are there other members desiring to speak to the passage of the bill? If not, the question before the House is the passage of the bill. Those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has each member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, 98 ayes, 0 nays, 1 member absent not voting. Majority of members present having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk, please report the title.
Committee Substitute House Bill 4230.
Are there amendments to the title? Not the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. Gentleman from the 58th.
Mr. Speaker, I move the bill be made effective January 1st, 2019.
The gentleman from the 58th moves the bill be made effective January 1st, 2019. All those in favor of the gentleman's motion will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, 98 ayes, 0 nays, 1 member absent not voting. 2/3 of the members present and voting, having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill effective January 1st, 2019. Clerk, please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Request concurrence therein. Further bills on third reading. Bills on second reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2654, expanding county commission's ability to dispose of county or district property.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3020, relating to criminal penalties for the offenses of hunting, trapping, or fishing on the lands of another person.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4156, establishing the qualifications of full and part-time nursing school faculty members.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4175, preventing the requirement that an advanced practice registered nurse participate in collaborative relationship to obtain payment.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
House Bill 4178, permitting certain portions of certified nurse aid training to be provided through distance learning technologies.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4275, relating to the law enforcement authority of the Director and officers of the Division of Protective Services.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4359, relating to the removal of animals left unattended in motor vehicles.
Are there amendments? If not, the bill be engrossed and advanced to third reading. Bills on first reading.
House Bill 4332, relating to home peritoneal renal dialysis.
Bill be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4350, eliminating the regulation of upholstery.
Bill be advanced. House, please be easy a moment. To the members, the committee substitute for House Bill 4199 was placed at the foot of all bills. The question for the House is the passage of committee substitute for House Bill 4199. The gentleman from the 27th delegate shot.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is a bill that passed out of Health and was referred to the Judiciary for further development. Generally, the bill permits a nursing home to use individuals who are trained as both certified nurse assistants or as certified nurse aides, commonly referred to CNAs, and approved medication-assisted personnel, which we'll be talking about and referring to as AMAPs, to administer certain limited medications. The bill also repeals a 2011 pilot program that was never initiated. The provisions of the bill are very similar and in some cases identical to other provisions of the code which permits the use of AMAPs in home care intermediate care settings, and assisted living facilities. AMAPs have been working in West Virginia to dispense medication for over 20 years. The bill adds nursing home to the list of facilities where AMAPs can dispense medication with certain restrictions. And among those restrictions are that a trained AMAP may only dispense a Schedule III through Schedule V drug upon written order or instructions of a healthcare professional. In other settings, which I referred to earlier, home care, intermediate care, and assisted living facilities, AMAPs can dispense Schedule II through V drugs. So this limits the earlier Schedule II in the situation of a nursing home. In addition, AMAPs in nursing homes would not be allowed to perform health maintenance tasks, where in other settings where AMAPs are permitted, they can perform those tasks. Now, to become an AMAP, first of all, an individual must be a CNA for at least a year. CNA is required to be trained and then retrained every 2 years via an OFLAC-developed program. The AMAP must also hold a high school diploma or equivalent, be certified in CPR, and participate in the training program and pass the OFLAC evaluation. When an AMAP is administering medication, he or she shall first determine if the medication is in its original container, make a written record about each medication administered, and comply with the legislative rules promulgated by OFLAC. However, an AMAP is expressly prohibited from first performing an injection, with the only exception being pre-filled insulin or insulin pens. They also are prohibited from administering irrigations or debriding agents. They must act on verbal medication. They may not act on verbal medication orders. They cannot transcribe medication orders, cannot convert or calculate drug dosages, cannot administer medications to be given as needed, with the exception being if a supervising nurse has first performed and documented a bedside assessment. And they may not, as I indicated earlier, perform health maintenance tasks. An AMAP may lose his or her authorization to dispense medication if he or she is not performing the function in accordance with the training and the written instructions. According to testimony that we had in the committee, issues with AMAPs in currently non-nursing home settings, there have been none. That's through the testimony of the representative from OFLAC. And as I said earlier, we have AMAPs in various settings that actually have lower controls, and no problems have been reported. Additionally, there have been no problems identified in the other 25 states that permit AMAPs in nursing homes. That's the bill, Mr. Speaker. I urge passage.
Because this bill was placed on the foot of bills, I'd ask the clerk to please read the bill a third time.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4199, permitting a nursing home to use trained individuals to administer medication.
Now the question before the House is the passage of the bill. Are there other members desiring to speak to the passage of the bill? The lady from the 50th, Tiger Longstreth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the chairman of Judiciary yield for a question?
Gentleman yields.
I will gladly yield for a non-medical question.
Thank you. When this passed health, there wasn't too much discussion as there has been in Judiciary and since it has gone through health. And there's been a lot of concerns raised, and I think it was with the nurses and with CNAs distributing medications. Do you know if they, and I have asked this question before, and I want to make sure that it's still the same on this part, is that they are being supervised, and what they are distributing is being denoted in the record by a registered nurse. Do you know that or not?
Yes. The short answer is yes. They are under supervision of a registered nurse, and they all of their activities they have to basically record in the nurse's notes of the patient's record, medical records.
Thank you. May I speak to the bill?
Lady, may proceed.
This bill, I have some concerns with it. In health, we did not as much, and I will admit that we let it go through. My questions were about supervision and medication, but they are very understaffed. We understand that they're understaffed in these homes, and with the CNAs having to do so much, but the nurses have other priorities. And my concern with this bill is that they're not going to be able to supervise what all is going on. We do have a drug crisis. We do not know. I know that most of the meds are packaged, or it's supposed to be packaged, but do we know if anybody's putting those things in their pockets? Now, I hate to be skeptical and I hate to be derogatory and negative about this, but it is a concern, and we've all been concerned about the drugs. I'm not so sure this is a time that we want to pass this and give them more leniency towards giving out medications in a nursing home environment and to the people who are in such need. So my concerns are for that, and you know, I hope that you all will look at this a little bit closer. We've been putting this down, pulling it off the agenda, because obviously there are some concerns to this bill, and I think until we actually straighten those things out and know exactly what we're doing and who's going to be giving these meds, and that everybody is on board as far as the nurses, CNAs, physicians, I don't think the bill should pass at this time. So I would be voting against this, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
The gentleman from the 41st, Doggett Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of this bill. Currently, West Virginia allows specially trained people to dispense medications in many different settings, such as intermediate care facilities for individuals with disabilities, assisted living facilities, behavioral health group homes, and private residences. Nursing homes have one thing that these other locations don't have, and that's a nurse on duty 24 hours a day. If something unusual occurs, a nurse can be summoned immediately. Additionally, AMAPs in nursing homes will not be allowed to pass Schedule II drugs. In the other locations where a nurse is not present, an AMAP can distribute Schedule II drugs, which include opioids. Moreover, AMAPs in nursing homes will be certified nurse aides. In other settings, an individual does not need such a certification. AMAPs have been used in West Virginia for years. The use of AMAPs in nursing homes will be more restrictive and have added safety protections. I urge you to support this bill. Thank you.
John from 17th, Doggett Lovejoy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I understand this bill, it would permit the passing of Schedules 3, 4, and 5. And I think it's important we know what we're talking about here. That's your benzodiazepines, your barbiturates, your Xanax, your Valium, your Klonopin. And I think all of us know those are drugs of abuse. And unfortunately, many of our overdose victims have a toxic cocktail of opiates and these drugs. I have concerns about drug diversion here. There are important training differences we talked about in our committee between your CNA and your nurses. We learned that your LPNs typically learn for at least a year. They study things like pharmacology and drug interactions and how to recognize when something goes wrong. Your RNs are as much as 2 years. So I said, well, how much would these folks have? It's not measured in years, it's measured in hours. It's about 120 hours. That's about 3 weeks of 40 hours a week. That's an issue for me. We talked about, or we just heard about, they practice under a nurse, but that nurse is only physically present or required to be 8 hours out of that 24. So I have some concerns. We've all received emails from many nurses in our communities stating their concerns, as did the head of the nursing board in our committee. And I think those concerns are valid. I'm concerned about drug diversion. I'm concerned about patient safety. And so on this one, for me, when it comes to this population of vulnerable people, they're not there because they're well. I'm going to stick with our nurses, and I'm going to be a no vote.
John from 26, Doggett Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise also in opposition to 4199. We all have that one person we go to when we need information on a particular bill or justification for voting one way or the other. And I'm going to be honest and tell you that that person is my wife. She's been a registered nurse since 1984. She currently teaches CNAs at a vocational school in Wyoming County. She's done that for 21 years. She's been a geriatric head nurse for 9 years. And she is a West Virginia licensed nursing home administrator. She and many, many other nurses in our area are absolutely against this bill. As an instructor, she tells me that a CNA's main job is basic daily living care requirements for their patients. That might include dressing, cleaning, exercise, etc. After training for these activities, a CNA must actually pass a certification test. Nowhere in that test does it include basic pharmacology. Mr. Speaker, in West Virginia, it takes anywhere from 6, as you heard from the gentleman behind me, 6 to 8 weeks to become a CNA. An LPN is 12 months, and that includes pharmacology. 2 to 4 years, depending upon the RN degree, and then requires board certification. Nursing students are taught the body system. They are taught in pharmacology how each drug affects that system. Say, for example, it's the cardiac system. Cardiac drugs given to a particular individual affect them depending upon the issue that we're talking about with the body system. They're taught drug side effects, to recognize those side effects. A short course given to a CNA, I don't think will come anywhere near that. West Virginia nurses are required to have several CEU units every year. I think it's 13. I can be corrected on that, but I think it's 13. And I think one of those units must be in the area of pharmacology. And that's every year. We're only going to require retraining of the AMAPs once every 2 years. Drugs change. Every year, drugs change. Every month, they probably change. Mr. Speaker, the average nursing home patient takes anywhere from 10 to 13 pills per day. Sometimes those are administered twice a day. They vary from insulin to anticoagulants, and as you heard earlier, to narcotics. I'd like to point out that 90% or more of the nursing homes do not have a pharmacist on staff. The facilities depend upon the nurse's knowledge to prevent accidental overdoses or reactions to medication. I will also point out they do not have a code or a crash team in the event of an emergency if the drugs given to them are incorrect. There are those who would allow unlicensed nurses to administer medication if the nurses supposedly are there. Many of the nurses in these long-term facilities only work 8-hour shifts, and most of them do not have any RNs on staff at night. When we talk about patient care, I think you need to define that. Physicians diagnose, and they prescribe medications. Pharmacists prepare the dose. Nurses administer per doctor's orders. That, Mr. Speaker, is basically patient care in a nutshell. Nurses do daily vitals, check for progress as a result of the meds. If CNAs are administering the initial dose, how do nurses know if progress is being made? Who does this charting? Mr. Speaker, there are numerous problems with this bill. Now, I know 25 other states allow this, but 25 states do not. Every time you turn on the TV, how many times do you see a nursing home abuse lawyer advertising for a new case? This is going to open up those cases. I think will only add to the problem. These are our most vulnerable patients, ladies and gentlemen. They deserve the best care that we can give them. Again, I am against this bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Lady from 32nd, Delegate Kessinger.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of House Bill 4199. Like the gentleman from Southern West Virginia just said approximately 25 other states already allow legislation like this. Additionally, 4 of our neighboring states, Ohio, Kentucky, Virginia, and Maryland, already allow this practice. And states like Minnesota have been allowing it for decades. I understand many of the concerns that a lot of people have raised today, but this is not a new concept. It's been tried and proven effective in 25 other states, and I would urge your support on this bill.
John from the 60th, Delegate Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the chairman please yield?
Gentleman yields.
For a non-medical question.
Yes, sir. I need some clarification on the code. Is there any reason to believe that these AMAPs will be preparing doses?
No. No, the doses would be pre-prepared, and most of the time they're individually packaged.
Is there any reason to believe that they'll be doing a doctor's job?
No.
Is there any reason to believe they'll be doing a pharmacist's job?
No.
Okay. So all they're really doing is they're working as assistants for nurses. Is that correct, sir?
Right, and under the supervision.
Basically doing the physical labor, but none of the actual mental labor that goes into preparing the doses and deciding which patients get which medications.
They will be following instructions and administering pre-packaged dosages, as I understand it, under the supervision of a nurse.
Yes, sir. Now, one last question, if you don't mind, about that supervision. Now, the nurses are registered, the doctors are licensed, right?
Correct.
Okay. The AMAPS personnel will be certified, is that correct?
Yes, and trained.
Yes, sir. Trained and certified.
Yeah.
So the question would be, if one of them were to make a mistake, or even worse, to be negligent or actually do something that's criminal, and we're moving into that territory now where they're stealing drugs. If that were to happen, are there penalties in place right now? Is there a system in place for dealing with that?
Well, in terms of the criminal penalties, obviously they would be subject to the same criminal penalties as anyone else. There is what I understand is called a nurse aid abuse and neglect registry.
Yes, sir.
These type of problems are required to be reported to that registry within 24 hours of when it happens. And if that complaint that's reported is investigated and sustained, the nurse's name goes on a registry, and they're no longer eligible for employment in a nursing home.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Speaker, permission to speak to the bill?
Gentleman may proceed.
As it seems to me that basically what we're talking about here is simply a person who provides the physical labor of handing the dose, or actually, I believe we're actually allowing the injection of a pre-drawn insulin. They're not drawing drugs. They're not going to the pharmacy and picking up medications. They're not determining what the patient needs. They're simply giving what is already written in the orders, handed to them, and given to them to give to the patient. It seems to me this is a really good idea, and it will take a huge load off of the physical labor of our nurses. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
John from 37th, Dr. Pushkin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Chairman of the Judiciary, please yield for a non-medical.
Gentleman, continue. Gentleman yields.
I went ahead and beat you to it.
Yes.
In committee, didn't we not learn that this was originally supposed to be initiated as a pilot program?
We did, yes.
And why was it never initiated as a pilot program?
My understanding was that it required a certain number, and I'm trying to think it might have been 10 participants, and they never got that many participants willing to, I guess, participate in the program. That's what I remember. I could be mistaken about that, but that's my recollection.
We couldn't find 10 willing participants, and yet now we're trying to pass this legislation?
Well, this is optional, so obviously it could be only one that takes advantage of it. It's not required. The nursing homes, each nursing home would have to make that decision individually. So there could be 8, there could be 1, there could be none.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman from the 50th, Delegate Caputo.
Gentleman yield.
Gentleman yield. Gentleman yields.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Chairman, I just have a question about the supervision you keep referring to. Is that direct supervision or indirect supervision?
Here's what I'm drawing on as the language of the bill to the gentleman. In subsection 2, it says, administration of medication shall be performed by an AMAP who's been trained and retrained every 2 years and who is subject to the supervision of and approval by an authorized registered professional nurse. The bill goes on to say, after assessing the health status of a resident daily, a registered professional nurse, in collaboration with the resident's prescriber, may allow an AMAP to administer medication. That's what I've drawn my conclusion, supervision. As far as whether the nurse is standing next to the AMAP at the time the medication is administered, I suspect that's not always the case, because part of the reason for this bill is to give the nurses a little more time to do the other type of more intense medical care.
I understand that, and I just wanted the members to be clear. I don't believe that there'll be a registered nurse standing over that individual distributing these drugs. So it could be, Mr. Chairman, correct me if I'm wrong, that the drug could be handed to the individual and the individual could walk it down the hall, however far, and then give it to the patient. That is indirect supervision, not direct supervision. Is that correct? Because there's a lot of time and a lot of space between when that drug leaves the dispensary and gets to the patient in his or her room. Is that correct?
I would agree there could be some time and space between when the drug is delivered to the AMAP.
And that individual could be by him or herself while she is delivering the drug, correct?
Yes, theoretically, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman from the 58th, Doug Coles.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, I rise in support of the bill. Like many of you, I had questions from back home and had to do some research and try to answer some questions and sent me on a search. And I've with me what probably has been shared with you. The use of AMAPs in nursing homes has been studied, and it was shared with me a couple of results, and the results are really positive. The first study I saw was the impact of medication aid use on skilled nursing facility quality, and the second one was the safety and regulation of medication aids. What the researchers in the one study from University of North Carolina found were, number one, the medication error rates declined with the use of AMAPs. Their error rates declined. Number two, that nurses were not displaced in their employment. AMAPs are AMAPs. They're not meant to be nurses. They're meant to help and assist nurses. And thirdly, and perhaps most importantly, the nurses had more time to spend on critical care of their patients. These are all goals I think we should support. This bill is permissive, it's optional, and could help in a lot of ways. And Mr. Speaker, I urge support for the bill. Thank you.
John for 27th, Doug Ellington.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of House Bill 4199. I'd like to clarify a few things on it first before I speak to it. It's permissive. It says that a nursing facility may use an AMAP. Doesn't mean they have to. It says they may. And it has worked in other states. They haven't had any major problems. The sky hasn't been falling. To answer the delegates from the 50th and the 26th questions, there's no decision-making by the AMAP. The prescribing is by the prescriber. That's either a physician, a nurse, practitioner, a physician assistant, optometrist, ophthalmologist. Those are licensed prescribers. They've taken pharmacology courses. They've learned what drug interactions are. It's by their instructions. The RN is the supervisor. It's a team approach. It's the provider, the nurse, the registered nurse, and the AMAP is part of the team. All they do is administer the medication. Now, yes, there may be grounds for possible diversion, but believe it or not, prescribers divert too. Physicians divert, nurses divert, dentists divert. Anyone who comes in contact with any controlled substance has the possibility to divert. This training program is a one-year training program. OFLAC is the one that oversees it. They oversee what goes on in the nursing home. They get to regulate it. Nursing homes are one of the more litigious sites in the country. They're not going to put themselves at risk to hire people that are very cavalier. So these are regulated. They will be followed. And yes, there is that possibility, but I think the majority of the time those people are pretty good with administering things. We have them in our hospitals. We have nurses' aides that help out. they are given specific duties. Again, there's no decision making. They can't change dosages. They can't give a certain amount of medication. They can't decide what the limits are on the medication. That's done by the prescriber and by the supervision of the nurse. So I support this bill. I think it would help us, especially in cases where there may be shortages on personnel. And it also helps cut down on costs to those facilities. And I also look at it as a jobs bill, so you might want to look at it in that light too. So, Mr. Speaker, I support this bill and urge passage.
The other members, before I recognize the gentleman from the 27th to close. Gentleman wish to close. Question before the House is the passage of the bill. Those in favor of passage will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, 55 ayes, 44 nays, no members absent, not voting. Majority of members present having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk, please report the title.
Committee substitute for House Bill 4199.
Are there amendments to the title? If not, title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. Clerk, please communicate the action of the House to the Senate and request concurrence therein. Leaves of absence. Jump. Okay. Remarks by members of the House. Gentleman from the 30th, Delegate Bates.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just ask unanimous consent that the remarks being made by the jacket being worn by the gentleman from the Kanawha be entered into the appendix of the journal.
Not sure what even language that would be printed in.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman from the 22nd, Delegate Eldridge.
I also would like the remarks from gentleman from a 44th be placed in the appendix journal concerning the coal miner.
Without objection, remarks be placed in the appendix of the journal. Gentleman from the 42nd, Delegate Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Permission to make an introduction?
Without objection, gentleman may proceed.
Thank you. I know that several people in here were at the Cultural Center last night with the West Virginia Library Association. On behalf of myself, Delegate Ambler, Delegate Cooper, Delegate Pack, the West Virginia Librarian of the Year is here with us, and she is from the Monroe County Public Library. I'd like for her to stand up. She's in our West Gallery. Please make her welcome, Paulette Kirby. Also, if I may, her husband is with her here today, Jack Kirby, who just recently retired with 39 and a half years of military service to the United States of America. Please welcome Jack Kirby. Please stand. And I have one more from the Kirby family. Their daughter is here with them. She is a third-year medical student at the West Virginia School of Osteopathic Medicine. She is a Southern West Virginia girl who wants to stay in Southern West Virginia and practice medicine. Lauren Kirby, please stand.
John from the 60th, Delegate Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is my great honor to announce the engagement of Petty Officer Martina Wilson to Specialist Daniel J. Stevenson. Thank you. It's my daughter. Thank you, sir.
Further remarks? Miscellaneous business. Gentleman from the 58th.
Mr. Speaker, subject to announcements, I move the House adjourn until 11 a.m. tomorrow.
Are there announcements? The gentleman from the 33rd, Delegate Hanshaw.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Republican members of the House will have a caucus in this chamber promptly at 1 o'clock. Thank you.
John from 64th, Delegate Householder.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Committee on Finance will meet tomorrow, February 7th at 8:30 a.m. for a budget hearing by the Department of Military Affairs and Public Safety. The committee will consider legislation immediately following the budget hearing, and the agenda is posted.
John from 27th, Delegate Schott.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Checking on the availability of the chamber for Friday morning this week, February 9th at 8:30 for the purpose of a public hearing.
Chamber is available.
Thank you. To the members, there will be a public hearing on House Bill 4268 entitled Co-Tenancy Modernization and Majority Protection Act. That public hearing will start at 8:30 this Friday, February 9th. To the members of the Judiciary Committee, the Judiciary will meet tomorrow at 9 a.m. The agenda will be posted.
John from the 51st, Doug Statler.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Education will meet Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. in the Education Committee room. The agenda is posted.
John from the 48th, Doug Hamrick.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Government Organization will meet tomorrow, February 7th at 9 a.m. in the House Government Organization Committee room 215E. The agenda is posted.
Lady from the 49th, Doug Summers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Health and Human Resources will meet today jointly with the Committee on Prevention and Substance Abuse at 4 p.m. Thank you.
Lady from 32nd, Doug Kester.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, substance abuse will be meeting with health jointly at 4 p.m. Additionally, just a reminder, the Sportsman's Caucus will be meeting for our annual legislative breakfast tomorrow morning at 7:30 a.m. in government organizations. I hope to see you all there.
The lady from the 59th, Doug Blair.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Political subdivisions will meet today at 3 o'clock in House Education.
The gentleman from 47th, Doug Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Veterans Affairs and Homeland Security will meet tomorrow, February 7th, at 1 o'clock in the House Education Committee room. The agenda is posted.
John from 39th, Doug Walters.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee of Pensions and Retirement will not meet today at 4 o'clock, but stay tuned. I may have another announcement soon. Thank you very much.
John from the 50th, Doug Caputo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Democrats will caucus at 1 o'clock in House Gov Org. Democrats, 1 o'clock, House Gov Org.
John from 43rd, Doug Hartman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Rural Caucus will meet immediately after the session. In 252, lunch will be provided, and we're going to discuss co-tenancy. Interesting subject.
Further announcements.
Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman from the 58th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, the last day for bill introductions is coming up. It's February 13th. That's the last day for bill intros, which means this Friday, February the 9th, you must have your bill introductions downstairs to Legislative Services. So deadline coming up Friday, February 9th to get your bill intros downstairs. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Question for the House is the motion by the gentleman from the 58th that the House stand adjourned at 11 a.m. tomorrow. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. Ayes appear to have it. I do have it. Declare the House adjourned until 11 a.m. tomorrow.
The Senate will please come to order. The Senate will please come to order. All those not having privileges of the floor will please vacate the chamber. Would those on the floor and our guests in the gallery please rise as we are led in prayer this morning by the Reverend Frank Miller, Director of Operations for the West Virginia Baptist Conference Center in Ripley, West Virginia. And then please remain standing as we are led in the pledge this morning by the Senior Senator from the 16th, Reverend Miller.
Our Heavenly Father, we're grateful to gather in this great state of West Virginia among the leadership, the volunteers, our elected officials, and we pray your blessings upon each one that's gathered here. Bless their families, Lord. Bless the work to do here in this great mountain state. Thank you for enabling us to help those that are broken, afflicted, addicted, that, Lord, that we could just show them love and appreciation. And pray now that you would come and walk amongst us as many major business decisions are discussed. And we thank you for the blessings and the freedom that we have in this great nation, and special prayer for our veterans around the world serving to keep us safe. In your precious and holy name we pray, amen.
Thank you, Reverend Merrill. The Senator from Brooke for the pledge.
Thank you, Mr. President. Will the members and the guests in the gallery please stand as we pledge the flag? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Reading of the Journal.
West Virginia Legislature Senate Journal, February 5th, 2018. The Senate met at 11:41 a.m.
The senator from Monongalia County requests unanimous consent that further reading of the journal be dispensed with and that it be approved as having been read. Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered. Introduction of guest. On behalf of the Senate, it is my pleasure to welcome our honorary pages for the day. Please stand and be recognized as your name is called. As guest of the senator from Boone, we have Caroline Nelson, Andrew Hike, Chris Abbott, and Brittany Belcher. And as guest of the junior senator from the 4th, we have Brandon Reynolds and Allie Douglas. If they would all please. Further introductions? Further introductions. The senator from Ohio County.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's my pleasure on your behalf and the behalf of the junior senator from the 4th to introduce some students from Ravenswood Middle today. We have Andrew Francis, Lydia Alfred, Lindsay Carroll, and Mr. Jason Gump. If they would stand and the Senate make them welcome. Also, Mr. President, it's my pleasure on behalf of the West Virginia Academy of Family Physicians to introduce our doc for the day. Our doc today is a Paul Ambrose Fellow at Marshall University, Dr. Louis Olive of Williamson, West Virginia. If he would stand and the Senate make him welcome.
Further introductions. The senator from Boone County.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the senator from Logan, we're very pleased to have chaperones of our pages today from Sherman High School, Allison Cole, April Estep, and Karen Nelson, and from Mingo Central, Cassandra Belcher. If they would stand, the Senate make them welcome.
The senator from Upshur County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm not quite sure why I didn't make it down to the chamber yesterday, but I've got a Fraser Singleton intern with me this week, Bryce Mahoney. If he would stand, he's from Charlestown. If the Senate could make him welcome.
Further introductions. The senator from Pleasants County.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have guests down from Parkersburg today. They're with the Mid-Ohio Valley Chamber of Commerce, and I think they're in the left gallery. Would you please make them welcome?
The junior senator from the 8th.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of my senior senator from Kanawha, we have in the gallery today one of our chaperones, and if she would stand, her name is Joyce Mack, and if the Senate would make her welcome.
Further introductions? Further introductions. Communications from the House.
The Clerk of the House announced the passage by that body of engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2655, defining and establishing the crime of cyberbullying.
Message will be received and referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2662, prohibiting the waste of game animals, game birds, or game fish.
Message will be received and referred to the Committee on Natural Resources.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2696, relating to crossbow hunting.
The message will be received and referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 4162, granting authority to the State Conservation Committee to contract for flood response.
Message will be received and referred to the Committee on Government Organization.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 4251, permitting employees of baccalaureate institutions and universities outside of this state to be appointed to Board of Governors.
Message will be received and referred to Committee on Education. Further communications from the House?
No, sir.
Communications from the Executive?
There are none.
Reports from standing committees?
Your Committee on Finance has had under consideration Senate Bill 78, continuing personal income tax adjustment for certain retirees, committee substitute for Senate Bill 271, creating centralized shared services section of Department of Administration, committee substitute for Senate Bill 283, relating generally to procurement by state agencies, And Senate Bill 346, permitting full-time non-resident students purchase lifetime resident hunting, trapping, and fishing licenses. And reports the same back with the recommendation that they each do pass. Respectfully submitted, Craig Blair, Chair.
The reports will be received.
Your Committee on Natural Resources has had under consideration Senate Bill 87, allowing purchase of Class XS resident senior hunting, fishing, and trapping licenses at age 65, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass, but under the original double committee reference, first be referred to the Committee on Government Organization. Respectfully submitted, Mark R. Maynard, Chair.
Reports will be received and referred to the Committee on Government Organization.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration Senate Bill 151, creating Appropriation Supremacy Act of 2018, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass, but under the original double committee reference, first be referred to the Committee on Finance. Respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
Report will be received. Now the bill's original double committee reference will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration Senate Bill 335, protecting employees' wages or salaries from being withheld or diverted for political activities, and reports back a committee substitute for same. And Senate Bill 395, providing for judicial review of appealed decisions of Air Quality Review Board, Environmental Quality Board, and Surfaces Mine Board, and reports back a committee substitute for same. With the recommendation that the two committee substitutes do pass, respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
The reports will be received.
Your Committee on Banking and Insurance has had under consideration Senate Bill 370, exempting non-paid volunteers at ski areas from workers' compensation benefits, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass, but under the original double committee reference, first be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary. Respectfully submitted, Michael T. Azinger, Chair.
Reports will be received, and under the bill's original double committee reference will be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
Your Committee on Finance has had under consideration Senate Bill 379, supplemental appropriation from State Excess Lottery Revenue Fund to DHHR, and Senate Bill 382, supplemental appropriation of lottery net profits to Bureau of Senior Services Lottery Senior Citizens Fund, and reports the same back with the recommendation that they each do pass. Respectfully submitted, Craig Blair, Chair.
The reports will be received.
Your Committee on Banking and Insurance has had under consideration Senate Bill 406, clarifying that ground emergency medical transportation is eligible for Medicare and Medicaid reimbursement, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass, but under the original double committee reference, first be referred to the Committee on Finance. Respectfully submitted, Michael T. Azinger, Chair.
The report will be received, and under the bill's original double committee reference will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration Senate Bill 404, relating to sex offender registry information, and reports back a committee substitute for same. With the recommendation that the committee substitute do pass, respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on Natural Resources has had under consideration Senate Bill 451, permitting Sunday hunting on public lands, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass, but under the original double committee reference, first be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary. Respectfully submitted, Mark R. Maynard, Chair.
Report will be received. Under the bill's double committee reference will be referred to the Committee on the Judiciary.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration Senate Joint Resolution 12, acknowledging legislative authority relating to protection of innocent life amendment, and reports back a committee substitute for same, with the recommendation that the committee substitute be adopted. Respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
Report will be received.
Your Committee on Finance has had under consideration engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 4135, updating the meaning of federal taxable income and certain other terms used in the West Virginia Corporation Net Income Tax Act, and engrossed House Bill 4146, updating meaning of federal adjusted gross income and certain other terms used in the West Virginia Personal Income Tax Act, and reports the same back with the recommendation that they each do pass. Respectfully submitted, Craig Blair, Chair.
Reports will be received.
That's all I have, sir.
Reports from select committees.
There are none.
Introduction of bills. The senator from Ohio County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Requesting unanimous consent that Senate Bill number 488 through Senate Bill number 495 be considered and introduced, read by their titles, and referred to the appropriate committees as shown on the chamber automation system.
The senator from Ohio County requests unanimous consent that Senate Bill number 488 through Senate Bill number 495 be considered introduced, read by their titles, and referred to the appropriate committees as shown on the chamber automation system. Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered. Resolutions.
Senate Resolution 28 by Senators Gaunch, Jeffries, Plymel, Stallings, Unger, Boso, Baldwin, Klein, Beach, and Drennan, designating February 6, 2018 as West Virginia State University Day.
The senior senator from the 8th.
Mr. President, I request unanimous consent that the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration, that the committee reference be dispensed with, and the resolution be put upon its adoption.
The senior senator from the 8th requests unanimous consent that the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration, and committee reference be dispensed with, and that the resolution be placed upon its adoption. Is there objection? Chair hears none. The clerk will please read the resolution.
Senate Resolution 28, designating February 6, 2018 as West Virginia State University Day at the Legislature.
The question before the Senate is adoption of the resolution. Is there discussion? The senior senator from the 8th.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is West Virginia State University Day at the Legislature. Makes me proud as an alum of West Virginia State. I'll try to curb my enthusiasm and just keep this to a minimum, but a few things you need to know about West Virginia State. Founded March 17, 1891, 127 years ago, as a public, historically black college and university on its campus in Institute, West Virginia. It was one of the original group of African-American land-grant colleges and is, in fact, one of our 2 land-grant institutions. In 1954, the Brown versus Board of Education, the Supreme Court decision, changed West Virginia State University. It was like integration in reverse. And 10 years after Brown v. Board of Education, I was one of those students, a 17-year-old who walked on that campus. And I can't tell you what a difference in my life, changed everything for me. I'm proud to be part of the West Virginia State family. West Virginia State has 77 academic programs leading to 23 baccalaureate and 5 master's degrees. The university is incredibly important to this valley, to this region, and to the entire United States. Its estimated economic output of $254 million. College choice, based upon data provided by U.S. News and World Report, National Center of Education Statistics, and PayScale ranked West Virginia State University the 2nd best public college or university in the state of West Virginia. And present company excluded, its alumni numbers are incredible, and they include celebrities, politicians, business people, athletes, military leaders, other business leaders, distinguished individuals who have distinguished themselves across the globe and changed this world. People such as the Tuskegee Airmen, Colonel Spanky Roberts, NBA legend Earl Lloyd, NASA mathematician Katherine Johnson, and on and on and on. Mr. President, it's fitting and proper that we pass this resolution recognizing this exceptional institution.
Further discussion. Further discussion. Not the junior senator from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, in 1952, my 8-year-old mother lost both of her parents. She and her 4 siblings were raised by their other 2 sisters who were 21 and 17, about 3 miles from West Virginia State. In 1954, as my colleague has described, segregation ended, and it afforded my Aunt Roberta, who was then 19, the opportunity to attend West Virginia State, where she earned her degree in chemistry and mathematics. She had a long career at Union Carbide and in the state of West Virginia in the state lab. Now 82, and I spoke with her last night. She wanted me to share how the staff and the faculty at West Virginia State welcomed her immediately. Since then, our family has had many graduates of West Virginia State, including myself. I urge adoption.
Further discussion? If not, question before the Senate is adoption of the resolution. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the resolution adopted. The senator from Ohio County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Requesting unanimous consent, the remarks by the senior senator from the 8th and junior senator from the 4th be printed in the appendix of the journal.
Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered. The senator from Ohio County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate stand in brief recess to present the resolution.
The senator from Ohio County moves that the Senate stand in brief recess for the purpose of presenting this resolution. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the Senate in brief recess to present this resolution. Senate will please come to order. The Senate will please come to order. Further resolutions?
Yes, sir. Senate Resolution 29 by Senators Carmichael, Mr. President, Drennan, Plymel, Stallings, Palumbo, Unger, Boso, and Beach, congratulating the Hurricane High School boys soccer team.
The junior senator from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration, committee reference be dispensed with, and the resolution placed upon its adoption.
The junior senator from the 4th requests unanimous consent that the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration, that the committee reference be dispensed with, and that the resolution be placed upon its adoption. Is there objection? Chair hears none. The clerk will read the resolution.
Senate Resolution 29, congratulating the Hurricane High School boys soccer team for winning the 2017 Class AAA State Championship.
Question before the Senate is adoption of resolution. Is there discussion? The junior senator from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President. It is your pleasure and mine to offer this resolution congratulating the Hurricane High boys soccer team for winning the 2017 Class AAA State Championship. Led by their head coach, Jim D'Agostine, this team, 36 members strong, displayed talent, determination, dedication, and spirit on the way to winning the school's second state championship in soccer. Finishing with a record of 19-1-4, this team will be remembered as one of the very best West Virginia soccer teams in its history. I urge adoption.
Further discussion? Further discussion. The senator from Nicholas County.
Mr. President, I also support this particular resolution. The guys standing behind me probably wouldn't like me most time when they take to the pitch, because I wear one of the alternative colored jerseys with a couple of cards in my pocket. But I will tell you, Hurricane has traditionally been a very strong, a very vibrant, a very smart team on the soccer field. And unfortunately this year I didn't get a chance to go watch them, but I listened a little bit to some of the outcome of their games. And I was very happy because I've got friends from the Hurricane area. When we get to looking at our soccer players as a whole, we call it the beautiful game. Why? Because these soccer players standing behind us, when they take to the pitch, there's no preset play. They have to react at a moment's notice to change conditions when the defense comes upon them. In order to score those goals, it takes a team effort. It's not necessarily a single individual. Mr. President, it's a team effort, and I applaud them for their accomplishments and their desire to do their very best. I support this resolution.
Further discussion? Further discussion? If not, all those in favor of the resolution will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the resolution adopted. The senator from Ohio County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Requesting unanimous consent, the remarks by the junior senator from the 4th and the senator from Nicholas be printed in the appendix of the journal.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. The senator from Ohio County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate stand in brief recess to present the resolution.
The senator from Ohio County moves that the Senate stand in brief recess for the purpose of presenting this resolution. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the Senate in brief recess to present this resolution. Senate will please come to order. Senate will please come to order. Further resolutions?
No, sir.
Motions? Petitions?
There are none.
Unfinished business?
There is none.
Bills on third reading?
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 102, creating West Virginia Uniform Fiduciary Access to Digital Assets Act. Third reading of the bill.
Question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? The senator from Morgan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee substitute for Senate Bill 102 is similar, if not identical, to a bill that we passed last year. Last year it was Senate Bill 693, which actually passed the Senate unanimously and didn't get taken up in the House. But the committee substitute for Senate Bill 192 is the Fiduciary Access to Digital Assets Act. It's a uniform act, and a number of other states have adopted it at this point. What it does, well, let me tell you the technical part. It amends two existing sections of the code. They're both in Chapter 39B, Article 2, Section 101, and Article 3, Section 101. And then it creates a whole new article in the code, which is designated as Article 5B in Chapter 44. And the bill addresses the modernization of assets, I suppose. It relates to and addresses the authority of fiduciaries, and that's typically going to be executors or administrators, but it could also be a conservator or even somebody who has a power of attorney acting as attorney in fact. Their authority to have access to and control over digital assets. So those are things like websites, web domains. It also addresses other digital assets like pictures, text messages, emails, that sort of thing. The idea being the law is catching up or trying to catch up with the technology and recognizing that people die with digital assets that somebody has to be able to reach, access, and control. The bill, the language, is, as I mentioned, is Uniform Act, but it is recommended to us by the Probate Committee of the West Virginia State Bar, which monitors such things relating to assets and fiduciary relationships. Mr. President, I'll be happy to try to answer questions about the legislation. Otherwise, I urge the bill's passage.
Further discussion? Further discussion? If not, all those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, there being 30 yeas, 0 nays, 4 absent and not voting, more than a majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 181, authorizing maps promulgate legislative rules. Third reading of the bill.
Question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? The senator from Morgan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee substitute for Senate Bill 181 is our rules bundle number 6, and it includes, as the short title indicates, rules that come under the heading of the Department of Military Affairs and Public Safety. There are a number of rules here. I'm going to go through them briefly. There's a rule that was originally Senate Bill 181 from the State Fire Commission, and that relates to hazardous substance emergency response training programs, hazmat training programs. Another rule from the State Fire Marshal relates to the licensing rules for electricians. That was not originally a separate bill number because I think it had been promulgated by the incorrect entity and is added to the bundle. Senate Bill 182 is a rule from the Governor's Committee on Crime, Delinquency, and Correction, and it relates to law enforcement training certification standards. Senate Bill 183 rolled into this, comes also from the Governor's Committee on Crime, Delinquency, and Correction, and it's protocol for law enforcement responses to domestic violence calls. And it's been since 2010 or 2011 that those rules were updated. There's also a repealer in this. There's a repealer of a rule from the Governor's Committee on Crime, Delinquency, and Correction relating to motor vehicle stop data, and it's a rule for which the authority expired in 2009, and the rule's just been sitting on the books since then. Mr. President, I'd be happy to try to answer any questions. Otherwise, urge passage of this rules bundle.
Further discussion? If not, all those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, there being 30 yeas, 0 nays, 4 absent and not voting, more than the majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The senator from Ohio County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill be made effective from passage and request unanimous consent. The roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective.
Senator from Ohio County moves that this bill be made effective from passage and request unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage be used to make it so effective. Is there objection? Chair hears none. On this question, there being 30 yeas, 0 nays, 4 absent and not voting, more than 2/3 of those elected having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill effective from passage. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 244, specifying conditions for unlawful possession of firearm at school-sponsored activities.
The senator from Morgan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent of the Senate to offer an amendment to this bill on third reading.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Clerk will read the amendment.
Senators Trump, Azinger, Rucker, and Palumbo
Senator
move to
from
amend
Morgan
the bill.
County.
President, I ask unanimous consent of the Senate to be able to explain the amendment in lieu of having it read.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. The senator may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. The amendment to the bill rewords subdivision 1, subsection B of section 61.711A. The substantive changes to it are very small. There are some stylistic changes, but the substantive change is to add some language. I have to compliment our colleague, the senator from the 17th from Kanawha, who realized there was an omission in the language of the bill. The bill will now make clear, if the amendment is adopted, that a person is prohibited from having a firearm if or at a school-sponsored function that is taking place in a specific area that is owned, rented, or leased by the Department of Education, the West Virginia Secondary Schools Activities Commission, a county board, or a local public school for the period during the time the function is occurring. The bill, as we had it before us without the amendment, addressed the school and the local board, but as the distinguished senator from Kanawha pointed out, without the addition of this language, there would be nothing in the law prohibiting someone from carrying a firearm onto Laidley Field when GW is playing Capitol High School on Laidley Field, or into Wheeling Island when the state championship games are taking place, because they are facilities that are not owned or leased by a local board. So this covers additional events where there are actually school functions taking place. I urge adoption of the amendment.
Further discussion? Further discussion? Not the question before the Senate is adoption of the amendment as offered by the senator from Morgan. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the amendment adopted. Bill, are there further amendments?
No, sir.
Not, the bill will be engrossed. Clerk will read the bill a third time.
Engrossed committee substitute for Senate Bill 244, specifying conditions for unlawful possession of firearm at school-sponsored activities. Third reading of the bill.
Question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? The senator from Morgan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just went over most of what this bill does, but there are two little aspects of the same code section. It's Article 7, Section 11A that are changed in the bill. One clarifies that retired law enforcement officers who meet the requirements of the Federal LEOSA Act, Law Enforcement Officer Safety Act, which is a 2004 enactment by the Congress, are authorized to carry firearms in a concealed manner, and there's language in here that makes clear the intent of the legislature last year on the aspect of this that related to parking lots, public school parking lots. I urge passage of the bill.
Further discussion? If not, all those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, there being 30 yeas, 0 nays, 4 absent and not voting, more than a majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed Senate Bill 393 relating to compensation and composition of West Virginia Racing Commission.
Senior Senator from the 15th.
Mr. President, I request unanimous consent to amend the bill in third reading.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. The clerk will read the amendment.
Senator Blair moved to amend the bill on page 4.
The Senior Senator from the 15th.
Mr. President, I request unanimous consent to explain the amendments in lieu of having them read, and that all the amendments be considered as one.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. The Senator may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. The bill originally provided for the new appointment of 5 commission members in order to facilitate the expansion and to ensure that all 5 of the members are qualified according to the requirements regarding the expertise in the field relevant to racing. The floor amendment, however, clarifies that the current 3 members of the commission will maintain their seats while 2 new members will be appointed. One as tourism representative and one as a veterinary services representative. Upon reappointment, the 3 existing members, assuming they are qualified as such, will be designated according to the other 3 areas of expertise. I urge passage.
Further discussion? Further discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is adoption of the amendment as offered by the Senior Senator from the 15th. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the amendment adopted. The bill will be engrossed. The clerk will read the bill a third time.
Engrossed Senate Bill 393 relating to compensation and composition of West Virginia Racing Commission. Third reading of the bill.
Question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? The Senior Senator from the 15th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 393 as amended here increases the numbers of the members of the number of members of the West Virginia Racing Commission from 3 to 5. The bill raises the limit of the number of members from the same political party from 2 to 3. The bill also adds the requirement that at least one member on the commission have the expertise in one of the following fields of knowledge relevant to the racing industry. The first one is tourism. The second one is thoroughbred racing. The third is greyhound racing. The fourth is the casino or racetrack management. And the fifth and final one is the veterinary services. Finally, the bill reapportions the existing amount allotted for the current Racing Commission members' salaries among the 2 newly created positions on the commission, thereby reducing the annual salary payable to each individual member from $12,000 to $7,200. Mr. President, I urge passage.
Further discussion? Not. Question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, there being 30 yeas, 0 nays, 4 absent and not voting, more than the majority of those present and voting, having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed Senate Bill 425, removing sunset dates which members of Policemen's or Firemen's Pension Fund elect to participate in Deferred Retirement Option Plan. Third reading of the bill.
Question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? The Senator from Upshur County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 425, removing sunset dates which members of Policemen's and Firemen's Pension Fund elect to participate in deferred retirement option plans. Senate Bill 425 extends a provision in West Virginia law allowing police and fire departments to utilize deferred option retirement plans as a tool to encourage retention of workers beyond normal retirement age. West Virginia Code 822-25A authorizes the governing bodies of municipalities participating in policemen's and firemen's pension plans to utilize deferred retirement option plans. A deferred retirement option plan allows an employee who has reached retirement age to freeze benefits at a certain time prior to ceasing work while the employer deposits the funds that would otherwise be paid out to the employee under a defined benefit plan into an interest-bearing account not to exceed 3.5% but 0% if terminated early. The funds accumulate in the account while the employee continues active work. The funds are then paid to the employee in a lump sum upon retirement, in addition to whatever monthly pension payment for the employee is eligible to receive. Currently, the law contains a sunset provision in the deferred retirement option plans for those participating in the policeman and fireman's pension plan, which requires that a member meeting retirement eligibility commence participation in a drop by June 30, 2016. Senate Bill 425 deletes that sunset provision, thereby allowing members of the fund to continue participating in drops beyond the June 30, 2016 sunset date and granting police and fire departments the flexibility to entice experienced workers to stay on beyond their earliest potential retirement date. I urge passage.
Further discussion? Not. Question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, there being 30 yeas, 0 nays, 4 absent and not voting, more than the majority of those present and voting, having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed Senate Bill 430, encouraging collaborative agreements between community and technical colleges and federally registered apprenticeship programs.
Senator from Ohio County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Requesting unanimous consent that Senate Bill 430 be referred to the Committee on Rules.
Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered.
Engrossed Senate Bill 462, establishing contribution holiday for public pension plans funded at 130% or more. Third reading of the bill.
Question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? Senator from Upshur County.
Sorry about that, Mr. President. Senate Bill 462 is designed to establish a contribution holiday for pension funds administered in the Consolidated Public Retirement Board, which have become overfunded. To accomplish this goal, Senate Bill 462 inserts a provision into the relevant code section for each public pension plan, which provides neither the employees of the system, the employer, which provides that neither the employees of the system, the employer, nor the state shall put money into the funds for any given fiscal year in which the fund's most recent actuarial evaluation for funding completed by the Consolidated Public Retirement Board shows the plan to have reached a funded level of at least 130%. The plans for which this bill establishes a contribution holiday are the Public Employees Retirement System, the Teachers Retirement System, State Police Plan A, State Police Plan B, the Judges Retirement System, the Deputy Sheriff's Retirement System, the Emergency Medical Services System, and the Municipal Police and Firefighters Retirement System. Currently, the only plans that would meet the 130% threshold are the Judges Retirement System and the Municipal Police and Firefighters Retirement System. The Municipal Police and Firefighters system has only been in existence since 2010. Thus, given the newness of the plan and its corresponding lack of current retirees, its funding level could be misleading. Accordingly, for the Municipal Police and Firefighters Retirement System, the contribution holiday would not become effective until 2030. I urge passage.
Further discussion? Not. All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, there being 30 yeas, 0 nays, 4 absent and not voting, more than the majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed Senate Bill 463, establishing group to examine benefits and need of transferring milk rules and regulations from DHHR to agriculture. Third reading of the bill.
Question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? The senator from Preston County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill number 463 directs you, Mr. President, to establish a working group to examine the benefits of and the needs to transfer some or all of the responsibilities of dairy rules and regulations from the Board of Health to the Department of Agriculture. Mr. President, I urge passage of the bill.
Further discussion? Further discussion? If not, question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, there being 27 yeas, 3 nays, 4 absent and not voting, more than the majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 4013, clarifying venue in West Virginia state courts as it applies to non-residents of the state. Third reading of the bill.
Question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? Is there discussion? The senator from Morgan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 4013, after its amendment yesterday on the floor here, is a little bit broader in its scope than the short title would indicate. There are 4 sections of code amended in the bill, and those include Chapter 6, Article 9A, Section 6. 6.9a is the West Virginia Open Meetings Act, Open Governmental Meetings. There are 2 sections amended in Chapter 14, Article 2, and that article governs claims made by citizens against the state of West Virginia. And then there's a change in Section 5611, which relates to venue generally. So let me sort of go over the changes. With respect to the Open Governmental Meetings Act, that first section, the current law says that the circuit court of any county where a public agency regularly meets has jurisdiction to enforce the article, Open Meetings Act. Omitted from that is any statement about venue, and that was the subject of a recent Supreme Court case where the court held that notwithstanding that language, venue was improper in the county where the case arose. So we add the words, and is a proper venue. So suits involving Open Meetings Act can be brought in the county where it arose under that. Venue's proper. In 1422, claims against the state, there are a couple changes in there that are similar to legislation that went through the legislature last year but didn't make it across the finish line. The general law under 1422 now is that any suit against the state of West Virginia has to be brought in the Circuit Court of Kanawha County. This changes that. And it says, the new language says that any suit for which insurance coverage administered by the Board of Risk and Insurance Management exists, BRIM, then that suit can be brought in the Circuit Court of Kanawha County or in the county where the cause of action arose. And then there's an amendment to that section that also makes it clear that Open Governmental Meetings Act challenges can be brought in the county where the board or agency regularly meets. 14.2, Section 2A relates to suits against institutions of higher education. Under current law, a suit against WVU or Marshall has rules that are different from the other schools. And those cases, suits under current law, can be brought in any county where the cause of action arises. This expands that to make it so that any suit against a governing board or institution of higher education in West Virginia can be brought in the county where the cause of action arose. And then the change to Chapter 56, Article 1, Section 1, that relates to venue generally, addresses claims by non-residents. These are lawsuits that are filed by people who aren't residents of West Virginia. And it says, there's a limitation here that says they can't be filed in this state unless all or a substantial part of the acts or omissions giving rise to the claim occurred in this state. So and there's a carve out on that, and it says if a claim is barred, unless it's barred by statute of limitations, a non-resident may file an action in court in this state if he or she cannot obtain jurisdiction in federal or state court against the defendant in the state where the action arose. And there are requirements that those criteria have to be met by all plaintiffs when there are multiple plaintiffs. And it says that each plaintiff must independently establish proper venue, and it defines non-resident, a person who's domiciled outside the state of West Virginia at the time the acts or omissions giving rise to the claim asserted arose. With carve out for residents of West Virginia or citizens who are members of the armed forces of the United States and not here because of their service. I'd be happy to try to answer questions, Mr. President. Otherwise, I urge the bill's passage.
Further discussion? Not the question before the Senate is shall the bill pass. All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, there being 30 yeas, 0 nays, 4 absent and not voting, more than a majority of those present and voting, having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk has a title amendment.
Committee on the Judiciary moved to amend the title of the bill.
Question before the Senate is adoption of the title amendment. All say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the title amendment adopted. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House. Further bills on third reading?
No, sir.
Bills on second reading?
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 94, prohibiting counties from regulating fireworks.
Are there amendments to the bill? Senator from Ohio County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Requesting consent that Senate Bill 94 be referred to the Committee on Judiciary.
Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 141, expanding county assessment and collection of head tax on breeding cows. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Not, the bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 230, authorizing Department of Commerce promulgate legislative rules. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Not, the bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 361, relating to treatment supervision under Drug Offender Accountability and Treatment Act. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Not, the bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading.
Senate Bill 371, relating to proceedings for voluntary custody for examination. Second reading of the bill.
Are there amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Not, the bill will be engrossed and advanced to third reading. Further bills on second reading?
No, sir.
Bills on first reading?
There are none.
Introduction of guest. Remarks by members of the Senate. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to make some brief remarks about the debate we had last Friday on Senate Bill 267, the pay raise bill. In a lot of respects, it was a good, passionate debate, but in other respects, I thought it skirted the line of Rule 8 of the Senate, or were violative of it. Rule 8 of the Senate requires us to avoid all indecorous or disrespectful language on the floor of the Senate. And at times, there were good comments on the merits of the bill. Other times, there was a lot of finger pointing. I think there were things that would classify as name calling, calling people grandstanders or, posturing, finger pointing back and forth. And one member of the Senate went as far as to call other members liars. And that's something I've not really heard on the Senate floor in my time here. I think the comment was they were tired of all the lying that was going on. Clearly, Mr. President, that's not consistent with Rule 8 of the Senate rules. And I call on you, Mr. President, to try to reestablish what the Senate has always been, a place where respect is given across the board to all members. We treat each other with respect. It's not the rule with exceptions, it's the rule, period. And I think that we can continue to have good debate and discussion about issues without getting into what you'd find in a middle school hall room, name calling, finger pointing, and things of that nature, Mr. President. And I just thought it was important to point out the senator who called out other members of the body for lying in that same speech made a comment that teachers had not received a pay raise since 1990, other than the increment that has provided year after year for teachers. And I wasn't armed with the information as we were sitting here Friday, but I am armed with it right now, and I do want to go over that with the members of the body. In 1990, teacher starting salary was $15,918. Teachers received a $1,000 raise in 1991, a $2,000 raise in 1992, a $500 raise in 1994, a $500 raise in 1996, a $750 raise in 1998, a $750 raise in 1999, a $750 raise in 2000. Some of these numbers are they're rounded off. They're not exactly. 2001, a $1,000 raise. In 2002, $800 raise. 2005, $1,400 raise. 2006, I think that was the year that just more steps were filled in. 2007, $900 raise. 2008, $1,600 raise. 2011, $1,500 raise. 2012, I believe it was $2,000. In 2014, I think it was another $1,000. So there were 16 separate raises provided from 1990 until 2014. I think you can make a good argument that they weren't enough and that it didn't do enough to keep up with what other states were doing. But to say no raises were provided from 1990 until 2014 is just not consistent with what's gone on in the legislature during that time period. Thank you, Mr. President.
Further remarks, the senator from Monongalia County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Unanimous consent to the gentleman's from the senior senator from the 17th. His remarks be printed in the appendix of the journal.
Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered. Remarks by members of the Senate to senior senator from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is actually sort of an announcement and also remarks. The West Virginia Legislative Sportsman Caucus will be gathering in the morning at 7:30 in room 215E in House Gov.org in the East Wing. It's made up of bipartisan, bicameral members that are protecting and advancing the traditional rights of West Virginia citizens to hunt, fish, and pursue outdoor activities. They want access to public lands, and they want to conserve and enhance fish and wildlife habitat. There are entry forms on your desk if you're not currently a member. There's all the information you need to become a member, or you can see me. Thank you, Mr. President.
Remarks by members of the Senate to senator from Harrison County.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, there is a lot of things that transpire in this chamber that divide us. We have different philosophies. I always tell people that my Republican friends in the chamber aren't evil. They just have a different idea of how to move the state forward, different from what I believe. Perhaps different from what the people out there believe, whether Democrats or Republicans. You know, this pay raise issue is going to be one of them. Fixing PIA is going to be one of them. But we did have an opportunity this year already, this session, to work together on something that I think was critical, which was the community and technical college free tuition for our children. You know, to help the kids that need direction and need skills to be able to be successful in our state. And that's something we all did together, and we made it better together. You know, and I just think we need to put our arms around that, embrace that, and get our friends over in the House of Delegates to move that bill forward. If that bill dies over in the House, it will be just a pity that we did not seize upon the opportunity to improve, and I mean really improve, the chances of success for our kids. You know, when you're 18 years old or you graduate from high school, to be able to have the ability to go on and get a skill, a real skill that's going to pay real money is unique in this world, and we're giving them that opportunity. And certainly this body did it together, and I certainly hope, and when we talk to our friends over in the House, that we get them to do something, because it is something that we can say we did on a bipartisan basis. We all contributed to that. And certainly we want to get them over there to see the light, see the importance of that, and make it a law in this state. So thank you, everybody.
Further remarks? Further remarks. The senator from Tucker County.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's with great regret and sadness that I want to report to the body that we had our first coal mining fatality today in Barber County at the Sentinel mine. The investigation's just starting. Said it was a rib roll. But if the members don't mind, I'd like to take a moment of silence to remember the family and just keep the family in prayer as they go through this tragedy.
Members, please rise and observe a moment of silence. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Remarks by members of the Senate. Senator from Upshur County.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the comments by the senator from Harrison be recorded in the appendix of the journal.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Senator from Ohio County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Requesting unanimous consent, the remarks by the senator from Tucker be printed in the appendix of the journal.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Further remarks? Miscellaneous business. The senator from Ohio County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Subject to announcements, I move the Senate stand adjourned until tomorrow at 11 a.m.
Are there announcements? The senior senator from the 15th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Finance will meet today at 3 p.m. And just for the record, so everybody knows that I've removed 3 bills from the agenda. SJR 3, Senate Bill 341, and Senate Bill 461. Thank you.
Further announcements, the senator from Monroe County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Education will meet this afternoon at 2 p.m. in the Senate Finance, and the agenda is posted.
Senator from Morgan County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on the Judiciary will meet today at 3 p.m. in room 208W.
Senator from Tucker County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Energy, Industry, and Mining will meet today at 1 o'clock in 208 West. Thank you.
Senator from Preston County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Agriculture will meet tomorrow, February 7th at 2 p.m. in 208 West. And I might mention that tomorrow is going to be Agriculture Day at the Legislature. I have distributed a letter from the Department of Agriculture on each of your desks. There are some activities taking place, and please come out and support our agricultural industry if you can.
Senator from Marshall County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Economic Development will meet tomorrow in 208 West. That's tomorrow, and the agenda is either posted or will be shortly.
The junior senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Health will meet today in room 451M at 1 p.m.
The senior senator from the 8th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Government Organization will meet today in 208 West. The agenda is posted. And I would like to just kind of give the members of the GovOrg Committee a heads up. Plans are at this point to have a meeting Friday morning at 9:30, just so you can mark that on your calendar. I'll confirm it tomorrow in announcements.
Could we get a clarification? Thank you. The clarification on the time from the senator from Marshall?
Thank you, Mr. President. 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock. The senator from Brooke County.
Thank you, Mr. President. The subcommittee for the Department of Corrections bill, Senate Bill 369, will meet tomorrow at 9 o'clock in room 208 West.
Further announcements? The senator from Upshur County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Pensions will meet tomorrow at 2 p.m. in 451M.
Senator from Mercer County.
President, your Committee on Workforce will meet tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. 208 West. The agenda has been posted.
Further announcements. The senator from Ohio County.
Thank you, Mr. President. Requesting unanimous consent that leave of absence for the day be granted to the senator from Wetzel, the senior senator from the 16th, the senator from Wayne, and the senator from Logan.
Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered. Further announcements? If not, the question before the Senate is, shall the Senate stand adjourned until tomorrow morning at 11 a.m.? All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the Senate adjourned until tomorrow at 11 a.m.